Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life features stories to inspire and motivate you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Visit cyacyl.com.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Many people, women in particular, experience chronic health issues that are chalked up to the normal cycle of life. Sometimes in their attempt to find answers, they're told that there's nothing wrong and that the symptoms are just in their head. Frustrated and with nowhere to turn, they accept their fate. Today's guest, Alisa Vitti, understands the frustration of knowing something is wrong with your body and not being able to get help. Alisa suffered from obesity, fatigue, acne, depression, low self-esteem, a limping libido, and a painful belief that she was alone. She sought medical experts to help her bring her body back into balance. The fact that no one would listen to her demanded that she listen to what her body was telling her. Her symptoms were her wake-up call. Alisa decided not to become a gynecologist and instead studied functional nutrition in order to become a holistic health counselor. Alisa founded the Flo Living Wellness Center in New York City and now teaches a food-based protocol that was the cure to her health issues. Alisa has degrees from Johns Hopkins University and the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. Her 5-step program is a resource for many health practitioners that want to recommend a natural solution for their patients. Alisa is a speaker who educates about the science of our bodies and inspires people to take control of their health. She's been featured in various media including CBS News, Huffington Post, Fox Business News, and Life and Style. She's a featured expert in Dr. Christian Northrup's newest edition of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. Hi, Alisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Joan. Such a pleasure to be here.
Alisa, I mentioned some problems in the introduction, and these are things that you've experienced, and I believe that they're very common issues for many women today. Tell us a little bit about your past health issues and how you ended up on this journey.
Well, it was a really unexpected turn of events, but, essentially what I was suffering from was a hormonal collapse by the age of 20. And leading up to that, as you described those symptoms, I was dealing with and not realizing it and not having a diagnosis for a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome, sometimes called PCOS. And so there I was, a young woman with a body that was acting hormonally very bizarre. So I was having all this fatigue. I wasn't menstruating. I was covered in acne. My mood was very unstable. And, I just wasn't in a good place inside of my own skin. And it reached a critical point by the time I was 20, and I felt absolutely compelled to take some action. I was one night in the medical library at Hopkins and doing a little research to try to figure out what was wrong with me, because I'd been to doctors for years and, was just simply prescribed perhaps the pill for just regulating my cycle. But I was always really curious, Joan, about why would I take a medication if I wasn't sure what it was going to do? Happy to do, normal standard treatments if there's a real rhyme or reason to it. But if it was just sort of like, well, we're not sure, let's just try this and see, I was unwilling to be a pharmaceutical guinea pig. So I was researching one night, came across this tiny article about the original name for the disorder, which is called Stein-Leventhal disease, and realized in reading the description, I was absolutely a classic presentation for the disorder, and marched into the gynecologist's office the next day with this document in hand. Don't rip these things out of the library journals. It's not nice. And I demanded that we do the right kind of test, and I think more so to just allow herself to get started with her own day. She said, sure, we'll do it. And lo and behold, she was surprised to find that I was right, that I had diagnosed myself correctly. I did have PCOS. My ovaries were covered in these tiny little cysts when we looked on the ultrasound. And we went back into her office, we sat down, and being from New England, I said, so now what? What do we do? I like a practical approach. I want to take action. And she said, well, here's the prognosis. You're going to be dealing with this obesity continuing. You'll have some issues with hypertension, more opportunity for you to develop diabetes. Certainly infertility will be a problem because you're not ovulating. And you'll have increased risk of heart disease and cancer. But don't worry, we'll medicate you along the way. And I just remember really feeling very huge degree of certainty on a cellular level that that was not my future, that instead I would take my very expensively trained mind and go figure out what was the root cause of my hormonal imbalance and breakdown, and what could I do to bring it back into proper function. And so when she made that statement, I replied simply with, I'm just going to hold off on that for now and go try to figure this out. And she's like, well, I'm here when you're ready for those steps. And I spent the next 4 years studying functional nutrition and nutritional genomics and endocrinology and chronobiology, and being my own guinea pig and trying many different approaches until I really figured out the right sequence of the steps of the protocol, and of course the right functional steps of the protocol to really bring the whole endocrine system back online. My big discovery was simply that spot treating hormonal symptoms, whether they be the PCOS that I had, or fibroids, or a flagging libido, or infertility, or, some of the unpleasant symptoms that come along with our monthly cycle, like acne or bloating or mood swings or weight gain or fatigue. Spot treating those from an endocrine system standpoint is not the way, because functionally it's about addressing the supporting structures that make the endocrine system work optimally. That's really where we can achieve the most healing and dramatic results in watching our symptoms clear up. And that was like a big light bulb moment for me, and when I realized that my body would get better. And it was amazing. Within a few months, 60 pounds came off of me without much effort. My skin cleared up, my periods returned, my mood stabilized, my energy came back. And I was pretty excited about that, as you can imagine. And I thought, if I knew about someone like myself when I first started feeling unwell, I would have immediately wanted to reach out, and I felt very compelled to be that resource for other women. So that's 10 years ago now when I opened my center in Manhattan, and am really thrilled that we now have an international practice. God loves technology. So have uterus and an internet connection, we can take care of you. And it's been a really exciting journey from having my body break down to having my body become my greatest teacher and open up a whole new world for me that I never would have even imagined for myself.
So, Alisa, you just described what you went through, and I'm sure that there are a number of women home saying, that's me. I'm going through the same thing. So what is it that you did? How did you make those changes? What was the first step?
Well, again, for me, the first step was a lot of research and experimentation. But in terms of what I eventually distilled into the steps of the protocol, there are 5 key steps. And the most important one is the very first step in a lot of ways, because if we get this right, the endocrine system can start to do its own healing work the way that it's designed to do. So the first thing that I instruct all of our clients to do is to stabilize their blood sugar levels. Now, what does that mean, and how do we do that? The endocrine system, a lot of people think, has everything to do with hormones, and it does. But that's the language that it speaks in. Its most important job that it's doing right now while you're listening to talk is safeguarding the transport of sugar, glucose, to the brain, the heart, and the muscle tissue. And it does that by speaking the language of hormones in various different ways. And this is such a critical function of the body that there are like 3 or 4 systems, backup and primary, that are dedicated to doing this job. So it's so essential that in our first step, we make sure that we are finding out what is your baseline metabolic response. Are you a fast burner? Are you a slow burner? Are you somewhere in the middle? How do you respond to macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and moderate amounts of sugar? And what combinations of those foods keep your blood sugar stable? A lot of women come to me and they complain about this afternoon crash, around 3:30. And I did a little reconnaissance one afternoon in New York. I sat at the Starbucks near Columbus Circle, and I just sort of from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock was doing some work and watching the pattern of traffic. And it was amazing. 3 and 3:30 were just like these critical surges of foot traffic in the coffee shop, people going into mainline caffeine and sugar because their blood sugar had crashed from their lunch, which was probably 1 o'clock. And 2 hours later, all that food has left your stomach and you're feeling the net effects of whatever combination of macronutrients you ate. And if it was inappropriate for stabilizing your blood sugar, you're going to feel like, I need that sugar, or you're going to feel like you cannot resist that piece of cake that's somebody's birthday at the office. And rightly so, your brain and your whole endocrine system is hardwired to make sure that blood sugar never drops too low.
Alisa,